Capturing attention is hard. I get it. Attention is scarce. With so many places to go and things to do, it's difficult to manage our time, let alone our attention. Plus, with the increasing number of channels, messages, and content all vying for that attention, in marketing it can sometimes feel like we're just throwing spaghetti up against a wall and praying that something sticks. Most of us are just waiting for our video to go viral or our post to be shared hundreds of thousands of times. But it doesn't have to be like that. We don't always have to be waiting and praying. Capturing attention doesn't have to be an uphill battle. In fact, capturing attention isn't that hard when you know a little bit of human psychology first. Hey guys, what is up? I'm Kara, the creator of Round Our World, and welcome back to my channel, your place for video tips, storytelling techniques, and video marketing advice. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. I share videos just like this one every week. The thing is, when it comes to attention, we're asking the wrong question. We're always asking what grabs attention, when really the question we should be asking is what deserves attention. I understand that capturing and keeping attention is difficult, and it's only getting harder, especially as our attention spans get smaller. But imagine for a second that you're in a crowded room. There's so much noise going on around you that you can't really pay attention to one thing, one conversation. But then you hear someone say, "I have a story to tell." We pay attention. We listen. That's the secret. If we want to capture attention, we have to tell a story. But why? Studies have shown that a human brain is far more engaged when it comes to storytelling than it is when it's just presented with dry facts. Stories serve as an organizational system that allows us to label things as good and bad and helps us remember what we've labeled. Stories are woven into everything we do. It's in the gossip that we tell our friends. It's in how we organize our day-to-day lives. What I mean by this is that essentially every day is a story. I said in my previous video, how to make better videos, that I'll link up here and in the description bar below, that every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Just like every day. And like stories, our day-to-day lives are chronological, they're not categorical. This is how we experience the world. And therefore it's easier for us to remember events chronologically than it is categorically. But before you start telling the audience every little detail about your day, it's important to note that telling a story won't instantly have your audience pay more attention to you. Yes, telling a story captures attention, but capturing attention is only half the battle. The other half the battle is in keeping attention. And keeping attention has a lot to do with how you tell the story. If you're someone that struggles with telling a story, then you're gonna wanna keep watching because I'm gonna give you some very creative ideas that will have your audience hooked on any story you tell. The reason why stories are so powerful is because when done right, they can strike a connection and build trust with your audience almost simultaneously. The best storytellers at capturing attention are the ones that pull you in. It's like a gravitational force. It's impossible to resist. They have you hanging onto every word. The best way of hooking someone is to make them listen to what you're saying and to make them care about it. So how do you do this? Appeal to their emotions. Emotions are one of the most powerful driving forces when it comes to memory. The stronger the emotion, the more neurons that fire. The more neurons that fire, the stronger the pathway to that memory. So that's why some of our oldest memories are connected to very strong emotions. Like maybe we remember crying because we fell off our bike and skinned our knees. Or we remember laughing so hard that milk came out of our noses. Those stories, those memories are connected to very strong emotions. Stories, in all their forms, is never about transferring information. We are emotional beings. And so if you want to grab our attention, appeal to our emotions. Tell a story that we can empathize with. Tell us that you understand our problems, that you relate to us because you've been there. And then tell us how your story can help us. How can you change their story? How can video change their story? What is their best story? Appeal to them intellectually by asking tough questions. These questions serve as bait. They're not easily answered by anyone, but perhaps hearing your antidote can help them answer these questions for themselves. So this locks your audience into what you're saying. If you raise these questions and answer them sporadically throughout the entire story, this creates a pattern that we can easily recognize, so we automatically know when to pay attention. This also creates anticipation, so it keeps us more engaged and more locked onto what you're saying because we want to find out what happens next. They say that curiosity killed the cat, but it might be the thing that keeps your audience's attention. Good stories build suspense because the best stories have conflict. Without conflict, stories just aren't very interesting. I said at the very beginning that our day creates a story because there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. But if nothing really happens during the day, if it's rather uneventful, is it really worth hearing? Since there is always a beginning, a middle, and an end, when it comes to conflict is always introduced at the beginning, and the end is where it's resolved. We want to tell stories that are relatable, that have our audience hooked onto every word that we're saying. And stories that have conflict that drive the plot are usually the most compelling, because we like to see how others handle conflict. Mark Twain once said, "Write what you know." While there are certainly great examples of stories and films that were born entirely out of someone's imagination, the best stories are usually rooted in a little bit of reality. So if you want to tell great stories, build on your own experience. Examine your life for times, places, and perspectives that no one else would have. There's power in your personal stories because no one else has experienced that event just like you have. When you're drawing from your own personal experiences and telling stories that you personally lived through, you're going to be more passionate. And it's that passion that's going to grab the audience's attention because we're naturally drawn to passion. And with these personal stories, make it personal. Show your personality. Be as goofy or as serious as you'd like. Show who you are in real life. We live in a curated world, and so being uniquely ourselves is attention grabbing of its own. You know what can actually ruin a story? The end. Think about it. It's the last impression you're leaving the audience with. So the best stories employ curiosity up until the very end. As a journalist, the best advice I was ever given was to leave your audience wanting more. The same goes for storytelling. You have to have the audience wishing the story had never ended. The best stories are the ones that pull the audience past the obvious to make them see the profound. You should never have to beat your audience over the head with your message, nor should you have to spell it out for them. That's because the best stories are the ones that have you thinking about it long after it has ended. So let your audience draw their own conclusions from their own takeaways. I don't mean to be vague and unclear, but it's about creating curiosity even at the very end. If you learned one thing about capturing attention, I hope it would be that stories are powerful. If you've learned one thing about capturing attention, I hope it would be that stories are powerful. From a neurologic perspective, stories activate more of our brains than any other form of communication. When we're just listening to facts or interpreting information, the language center is activated. But when we're listening to a story, that activates the centers as if we're actually living the story, like the motor center, the sensory center, and the emotional center. So more of our brain is engaged when we're listening to a story, which makes us automatically pay more attention. Storytelling is about deserving attention. And as I mentioned before, it helps build a connection between you and the audience because you're relating to them on a personal level. In society, we don't just buy products and services anymore. We buy relationships, we buy stories, we buy trust. We want to know that what we're investing in will help us. Tell me in the comments below if you think that storytelling is the key to attention. If you found this information useful, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week with more video tips, storytelling techniques, and video marketing advice.